Hello, everyone, and welcome to the South Asia Democratic Forum podcast. I am Tapas Kanti Baul, and today we are diving into an issue that affects every household, every business, and the future of Bangladesh's economy, the crisis in the country's banking system. From mounting non performing loans and political capture of banks to pressure on foreign reserves and reliance on World Bank and IMF financing, Bangladesh's financial sector is facing an extraordinary moment of reckoning. My guest today is Dr. Birupaksha Paul, professor of economics at SYNY Cortland and one of the most authoritative voices on Bangladesh's banking and financial policy. His academic work and his public commentary have consistently highlighted the governance failures at the heart of this crisis. Today, we will ask some difficult questions. Will multilateral lenders continue supporting Bangladesh? How did the interim government under Professor Muhammad Yunus perform? And what would a real reform actually require politically and economically? Dr. Paul, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Barrister Baul, for including me in such a prestigious platform.
Thank you. Before asking the first question, if you have noticed that Policy Research Institute of Bangladesh, they have claimed that in March, 20,000 crore taka have been, printed in Bangladesh. Considering this news, and we all know that there is this agreement between USA and Bangladesh, and I don't know that whether this has any direct connection with the topic we have. In spite of that, for our listeners and viewers, we need to be updated about these two issues. So, considering all this, how would you characterize the current condition of Bangladesh's banking sector compared to earlier periods of stress?
Actually, Bangladesh is an overbanked nation. In the early 90s, in the is actually bank privatization started because public banks were not enough to serve the people, and actually government wanted to increase the level of competition and diversity. So private banks were invited. So first generation 10 private banks were first allowed in President Ershad regime in the 80s. Later, BNP government from 91 to 1996, 7 new banks were allowed. So that makes 17. Afterwards, from 1996 to 2001, Awami League government allowed 13 new banks. So that made 30 total banks, private banks. During BNP regime from 2001 and to 2006, no new banks were allowed. But again, Awami League came to power in 2009 and they allowed another 13 banks. So it made the task difficult. So 43 private banks were allowed. So initially, the spirit was to increase competition and increase privatization, private competition, access to fund. That was the spirit. But later on, actually, Awami League helped mushroom the number of banks, which were given to many families, just like family. One family of Chittagong got 6 to 7 banks directly or indirectly under their family membership. So that was an unhealthy move towards bank. And what happened actually, banks are not allowed to give loans to its own directors. So there was an arrangement from a family. If you have two directors, you can take loan from other banks, and that is how default culture skyrocketed. Another thing is that when Awami League came to power in 2009, that was a landslide victory. That is okay, but after that, Awami League uh, cancelled the caretaker government system, and Awami League got some support from the oligarchs. Big. At that time, their growth was not that much, and they got appointment. So this is the political economy. Actually, banking should not be seen as just banking. So they got this ownership of different banks, and they tried to pursue, or they actually bargain to get control of banks, the banking sector. The reason is that capital market was almost very dull after 2010 collapse. So all the oligarchs actually what is called gravitated towards the ownership of banks. So that is how bank sector actually kept on increasing its default culture. And non-performing loan means if you extended 100 taka, and if like 15% non-performing, means you have to write off at some point because the money is not coming. But now non-performing loan has come to as high as, according to Bangladesh Bank statistics, is 34% or 31%. Actually it was 36%, and I don't know what happened. New mechanism has been done. Some actually uh, credit takers are given some excuses and they can adjust only 5% and get loan extended. Okay, the coming to the number is, I think, actually around 40% loans are actually defaulted now. So this is huge, highest not only in the region, highest in the world, in comparison to many other countries. So this is really unsustainable. So banking sector, particularly private banks and also government banks, they are under dire pressure to survive, and that is why this is the biggest hole of the economy.
Right. Now, you yourself was a chief economic officer of Bangladesh Bank, so you have experienced all these problems firsthand. So, why do you think that these has become a problem? Do you think it is fundamentally one of liquidity or governance or political interference or public confidence or a result combined from all these factors?
This is, it has a political economy. Let me explain. Arm League was supposed to give an election in 2014. So 2014 election was not under caretaker government. It was under Arm League government, and actually many members were just elected without any competition or any kind of resistance. So what happened? And then they started to bargain to take more money, and then they proposed is called restructuring their default loan. Big loans should be restructured. That was the year of 2015. So in 2015, I went to Bangladesh Bank as chief economist, and I served up to 16. I did not continue, or I was not allowed to continue for some kind of reason, because I used to write in newspaper and I used to oppose default culture. So actually people in power found me a bit problematic, so that is why. But from my academic point of view, I always opposed this default culture. I also opposed during the boardroom that the defaulters will be given 25 years of amnesty to adjust their loan. And I said, according to time value of money, it should not be the right case for that. But later on, actually advisor has very limited role, you understand. So economist will advise the governor will see the points, that's okay. Even though government finds some point, governor has does not have that extreme power or autonomy to exercise anything, because central bank is still under the pressure of the Ministry of Finance, who are political people, see, the top people. So governor understood the pressure. And I actually saw different tycoons are coming to central bank, how they are trying to pressurize, creating lobby, but they could not make good lobby with me, because I'm different. I said, at the end of the day, I'm an academic, so that is my goal, and I will not give in to anything. But anyway, I kept on seeing things are happening. Anything I protested, I got a phone call from advisors. Particularly during that time, some of the advisors are very powerful, particularly like energy advisor, who is now in jail. So he dealt, they are the deal makers, and I am the person who will oppose these things. Particularly one of them is Rupur power plant. Actually, I personally oppose that. I didn't like this plan with Russia, because it is increasing a huge burden of loan. Let me give a comparison. Like Padma Bridge was a fund of like $3 billion, okay, or maximum $4 billion, something like that. That Rupur power plant was for $13 billion that time, and most of the support is coming from Russia. And I had some doubt about Russian commitment, because in at the end of the day, they will not take their nuclear waste, okay, and this is happening now. Instead, I thought that if you increase solar system, reusable energy system, that is the solution for Bangladesh, rather than this type of power plant, which, if anything happens, Russia has the record of nuclear explosion. Domestic, their power plants did not operate properly. So these are the examples. I don't want to extend this. Let me come back to the point is that yes, default was rising that time, but it was not that worse. It rose because of the restructuring. So restructuring allowed the big loan takers to renew their loans. So technically, they asked for this loan to extend so that they can do good during this economy. That time economy was doing good because growth rate was rising every time. Many of them were willful defaulter and they are very powerful. For example, a big defaulter was appointed as private sector advisor. So these things actually, I believe, who are actually defaulter should not be allowed to be member of the parliament, because they member of the parliament's members actually make the law. You know very well, you are also a lawyer. So this is something happened, and they made their directorship act, everything banking act in their favor. So that is how banking sector is a political economy matter. It's a matter of politics, it's a matter of legal battle, and it's a matter of influence of the parliament. So it is not a standalone problem of only banking.
So you have already said that non-performing loans, regulatory capture, and politically connected lending played a crucial role in deepening the crisis. Now the question is that in spite of all this, can meaningful banking reform occur without broader political reform?
Well, politics is a continuous process of reform. There is no point like terminal point. Oh, this is the terminal point. Politics is final. No, that's not true. It goes with the will of the rulers who are in power. Problem is that the people are in power. Power is not sometime in the hand of a single person. It is a club. It's a group of people. So if, for example, you are head of the power, but you are advised by others that please do not displease this guy, do not displease this tycoon, they are financing us, they are financing our political process and in terms of need. So that is how nepotism is a matter. If government is very strong, like Balendra Shah of Nepal, then something can happen. It's a drastic. Dispassionate head of the government should be very much dispassionate, and the reform, whatever they want to start, they should start right now. If the BNP government wants to really rectify the already rotten banking sector, they have to start it now, and they have to give autonomy to the central bank, and central bank governor should be appointed in such a way that a really knowledgeable person can be a governor who knows how to make things happen and how to recover this ailing sector.
I will just ask a very short question because I have seen in your conversation with Nobonita Chaudhuri as well, you emphasized on the appointment procedure. Like you said that a meritorious or merit based appointment is required. On the other hand, the present government has appointed a businessman, right? And definitely, banking sector is not only for general people but also for business ventures because bank, if as a layman, if I say that bank works as a bridge between the two, the general people, the commoners, and the investors or the industrialists. So I understand in that way. But you say that the appointment of the governor should be on the merit based. Do you think that merit is should be the only criteria, or should that particular governor should have his experience in policy level as well as a businessman, like who knows how to actually navigate the investment? That is the question.
Well, to answer this question, actually, I think actually governor is like a surgeon in the surgery operation theater. So governor will do it in a dispassionate way. And governor is not a person who will understand business. That's okay. But he need not be a businessman. But if he is a businessman, that is not a problem. Problem is how strong is his backbone is. That's the point. Point is that for academic, because when you earn a degree, particularly in monetary economics or banking, you get some kind of lessons. At least it creates some kind of moral obligation to comply with this, rather than just whatever the finance ministry is doing, some kind of personality. And that is why in economics literature, the appointment of central bank governor, it has a high level of plethora of literature. And one model is called reputation model. Some person has a good reputation to fight inflation. He doesn't like inflation in his writing, in his research, in his paper. So this person should be appointed as a governor. This is the solution of Western countries. Governor is a vital role. Governor plays a vital role for an economy. Just look at the financial crisis um, of the US, which started from US and actually rattled also UK and other developed economies. 2007, 8, 9. Actually, that time America was rescued. Ben Bernanke from Princeton University, he was a professor at Princeton University, economics professor. He came to power, and then Time magazine in 2009 made him the person of the year. And they say that central bank governor is the second most powerful person after the president, because he leads the economy in a dispassionate way, just like in a neutral way,
Mhm.
without following any political preferences. So that is why we historically and from experiences of different countries, sometimes examples are better than precept, because examples make the difference. The bank of central bank governor Mark Carney did a good job, and Britain actually took Mark Carney, who was a Canadian citizen, just because of his merit. Does it mean that UK did not have any economists? No, he's the place of economists, but they took him because he was a scholar. So these people are a good regulator. Raghuram Rajan from Chicago University was invited to India. Well, at some point he had some clash with political authorities. That's okay, but he did not give in. He did not give up his morals. So actually, that's why we all always see that why academics are there, because they are built in. They teach, they preach, they are like priests. You see, we always talk and interact with our students that build up a mental faculty expertise. Another thing, well, he will make a bridge between business, but central bank is not simply business. Central bank, many people are depositing money who are innocent, ignorant, who are illiterate, poor, rickshaw pullers, and the central bank governor is the custodian of their interest too. So it's a
Right.
making bridge between depositors and lenders. I should not only think about the borrowers, only the borrowers. So central bank is the mediation. So in the place of mediation, we need some kind of regulator who will be a bit impartial and strong to ethics. That's why historically we have seen how India transformed when Manmohan Singh became the governor of Indian Central Bank, and he started transforming the economy. So historically we have seen this. What we haven't seen is that Bangladesh after 2015 appointed just bureaucrat government governors, and they didn't do good job. No matter, they are very loyal to political party, and any kind of, when people are loyal, they respect to their position or they stick to their position. They try to satisfy very narrow personal needs or very much social needs, or they're not courageous. Simply, we have seen it. It's a proven truth. That's why I always see that. And we have recently seen the appointment of Dr. Hassan Mansoor. So
Mhm.
the criticism I did with Navonita's platform is not against the current governor. Governor is from business world. That's good, no problem. You may have business experience, like Alan Greenspan, American Fed chair, who had business experience. But my point, I had 3 points. One thing is, he himself was a defaulter, so how he can fight default culture, which is number one problem. Second
Mhm.
thing is, he is an unknown entity, because a reputation model requires that this person is known for something, preaching his policy is known in the platform, and that is why a reliable person should be there. He was totally an unknown entity. And
Right.
thirdly, the way Hassan Mansour was removed was not good. It was not proper. It is a disrespect. And how a person who was in the middle of merging all the ill, all the weak banks, that is a bad signal to the economy, that whenever someone wants to do something good, he will be kicked out from the bank. So these are the three things which I did not like what finally BNP government did.
So that brings us to the question of evaluating Yunus government performance with the banking sector. How do you see to that? Because Yunus government was not a democratically elected government, and we have, from the pulse of the news reports and the pulse of people, we understand that the economy was not good. So, how do you evaluate the banking sector during that time?
Well, if you ask about the Yunus government, I'll start with this sentence. The Yunus government was the worst government by far, the worst government in Bangladesh's history. This is not because that economic performance, not only that, it was a dishonest government. Dishonest in the sense that there are three features this government had. One is dishonest, committed that they will do economic reforms, and that is why they were buying time. But eventually, actually, they were buying time for some other reasons. They had the intention to stay longer. That's the point. And a caretaker should not stay longer. He could have justified to stay long had he improved the economy.
Right.
Second thing, the economy was in shambles, and gradually, day by day, it was going downwards. Another thing, we appointed, again, I'm coming back to the reputation model. What reputation Professor Yunus earned? That he was an economist. But
Right.
later on, it was very hard to get a Nobel Prize in economics. So he didn't get it. He could not manage it. He
Mhm.
managed a Nobel Prize in peace,
Peace.
in a detour explanation. Why
Right.
peace? Because
Mhm.
he is good at reducing poverty. That is what are the things, or the myth. The some myths are going that he
Mhm.
was good at reducing. Because when I was a banker, even in 1993, I started my career as a banker first in 1989. So in 1993, I was in Arab Bangladesh Bank, and that time I saw in newspaper that President Clinton, even being elected, coming to office, his
Mhm.
first job was to preach for the for his friend Professor Yunus. And that time, one intellectual told that if Professor Yunus can manage a person who is the strongest person, who is the most powerful person in the world, then he can get any prizes. So it took another 12 years. So he got Nobel Prize in 2006. I don't want to demean these things, but this does not come to his action. Let me come to this point. When he was appointed chief advisor, it is equivalent to prime minister. And
Right.
that time, for the first time in Bangladesh's history, the poverty reduction, the trend of poverty reduction reversed. Just like it came down to 18% gradually, starting from 51% in the early 80s. So then it came down, gradually came down. It came down during Hasina's regime, during BNP regime. In all regimes, it came down, and suddenly it came to 18%, and now it is 28% or 27%.
Mhm.
30 lakh new people just plunged into poverty, extreme
Mhm.
poverty now. So that disproves his action, that why he got a Nobel Prize in poverty reduction. So it's not poverty reduction, poverty enhancement,
Mhm.
poverty increment. That is something. Another thing is that this government apparently looked like a scholar, full of scholars, but they took all unscholarly things. They promoted mob culture for the first time, what I call in Bengali Ogni Shabhata, a civilization of fires, vandalism, banning, disowning, and also Professor Yunus is seen as a person of empowerment, women empowerment. But during his tenure, women had a very terrible time. Highest number of rapes
Mhm.
within the time framework. Growth rate came as low as to 3.3%, which is lowest in 36 years in Bangladesh history. So without growth, you cannot fight poverty. So everything, all the indicators. However, I just told about banking. One thing he did correct, or his advisors did correct. He appointed Ahsan Mansoor. This is a position, and he tried, but he could not fight against the stream. So whole stream is going this way. He also appointed like a smart guy like Ashik Chaudhary. Ashik Chaudhary is talking about come to Bangladesh, talking to foreigners that come to Bangladesh. This is a hotbed for your investment. And at the same time, Professor Yunus has indulged groups, pressure groups, which they define as pressure groups. They were vandalizing in Bata store, in foreign stores. Foreigners were very much, they were freaked out. They did not like to come. And that's why foreign direct investment came to a new nadir, new law. It's a law. So in all counts, it was bad. Also, Hassan Mansour was a good governor. That's okay. But during his time, default culture went up, spiked up. There is a reason. Why reason? Because one thing is that lot of vandalism happened in businesses, mills, and factories, so they could not pay their loan. So loan defaulters have two groups: one is willful, another is involuntary. They had nothing to do. And that is why new finance minister is telling, I think 2 days ago in parliament, that businessmen are in some businessmen are in existential threat. So who created the threat? At the end of Hasina's regime, no, there is no existential threat. Rather, they were highly pampered. That was the accusation. But now they are in existential threat. So why? Who created this threat? Tarek Rahman? No. The Professor Yunus's contribution. So he ruined the business. He damaged the state of welfare for women, and also on which ground he came to power. It is called unemployment. Unemployment was high. That's why students are fighting for jobs, and unemployment went up during his time. And he said all these rubbish things, that he had a lot of applications from foreign countries, that they
Mhm.
are asking for our youths. These things are actually baseless, and sometimes ridiculous, funny, and I feel degraded to comment on these things. How a Nobel laureate can make this type of thing, which are actually
Right.
baseless things. So
Probably
for
that's why.
various reasons, it may take another session to talk. I feel disgusted to talk about this group of hypocrites.
That's why probably you said that this is a government, this is a dishonest government. Coming back to the present crisis, you have depicted the present crisis very well. So, what kind of reforms do you suggest in this situation? Oh, before answering this on these recommendations, let me ask you. I forgot to ask you about the question about whether World Bank is going to pay the next installment of loan to Bangladesh.
IMF. This is IMF actually.
IMF.
IMF
Sorry, yes.
initially
Right.
committed to give around $5 billion, $4.7 billion. So we have some kind of installments coming in. I'm not sure whether they will pay, but the amount is not too much, 1.3 billion raised. But this is not a matter of amount. It's a matter of prestige, matter of
Mhm.
regularities, matter of some disciplining. So financial sector disciplining. These are the indicators. So the government should try hard, and the reforms must start from the new government, new elected government. Actually, Yunus stayed in power for justice judiciary part, and it was a mess. He increased the number of cases, and a lot of logs jams in courts. Many people are, including many innocent people, are in jails. That is a bad thing. Judiciary was worse.
Mhm.
Economy did not perform well. He was supposed to give election, which could have been given in 3 months, and usually previous governments, like caretaker governments, did it in 3 months. So he actually took some excuses to stay in power. That is already proved, and you can see other talk show speakers, they are doing this thing. So
Right.
now the question, yeah, we are coming to the BNP government. So he made the starting of BNP government very difficult. BNP government is having difficulties from both domestic and foreign sectors. Foreign sector, the government did not foresee that the war between US and Iran will start. So that has created, spiked up the problem of energy, and this is creating a lot of problem, because energy is at the source of inflation and everything. Yunus government could not reduce inflation drastically when our neighboring countries, some of the countries, went to deflation, negative inflation, which is called
Mhm.
deflation. So he could not. So inflation is still high, close to 9% average inflation is there. Unemployment is very high. Banking sector is in shambles. So it should be, reform must start from here. The big hole the BNP actually interim government created, and actually it was since the last part of Awami regime, when fiscal incapacity, like you are spending more than what you can earn, that was increasing, augmenting the level of debt. So debt is not still at an alarming stage, but the way debt has gone up is not satisfactory for a country like us, because we have miles to go, you see. So Robert Frost saying that we have miles to go before we sleep. So before we graduate to a developed country, miles to go. You cannot exhaust this thing. Hasina government, when it started, inflation was close to 3 lakh crore, taka, and when it ended, it was 18.5. So 15 lakh crore taka was taken during his regime. But at the same time, Hasina government could show some kind of development and visible development projects. You can see like Metro Rail, Padma Bridge, Rupur Power Plant, highways, and development in other areas. While at the same time, corruption was there, inefficiency was there, bribing was there, money laundering was there. Okay, so I agree to this. But Professor Yunus, when he left and BNP got 23, so from 18, almost 5 lakh crore taka, Professor Yunus increased for no development project, no development, just paying for operational costs. That is very inefficient. Its finance minister, finance advisor, when he left power, he wrote an article in Bonik Barta and he said, we did not do anything, any projects which will please the public only. He teased the Hasina government, but we look for a long-term goal. What long-term goal you see? You increased only operational cost. You increased loan from the banking sector and made a record growth of taking loan from the banking sector. You are not supposed to do that. You have a mini cabinet, like 25 advisors totally, maybe 20 to 25. We didn't count because we are waiting to see they go. But with this very short cabinet, how you increase these things? So means inefficiency are there, corruption are there, and some people compare this corruption level is very high. Like in Hasina's regime, Sheikh Hasina told that my peon made 400 crore taka. That was over 15 years. But in 9 months, some advisors and their what is called disciples made 300 crore taka, so many things. So corruption should be there, and there should be actually white paper on this. But white paper economists were very enthusiastic after Hasina's collapse, to make a white paper in 3 months quickly,
Right.
and they produced some numbers which are doubted, which are actually impractical. But that requires a different discussion. But now
Mhm.
I don't see their enthusiasm to
Enthusiasm
make
is gone.
another white paper on Yunus's regime. They should do that. If they are impartial, they should do that. And one point is that they made it as they claim. They made it without taking any money.
Mhm.
If there is no money, there is a doubt. Why are you doing it so much enthusiastically? If a lawyer is making a case without money, he has some
Mhm.
moral obligation, probably some kind of trust, some kind of feeling. So why are you doing? And now why don't you do with some feeling? I would request BNP government to employ a group of economists and give them money, no problem, and make a white paper on this, because it's not just defaming Professor Yunus. It is gone case. It's a dead horse. But at the same time, to get some lessons what mistakes were done, and that should be avoided for future progress, because this is an elected government and we want it should work for the betterment of the country. And that is why I'm coming back to your loan case. Loan is not simple loan. Disciplining the economy requires a lot of guards, and I hope um, we should cooperate and give some ideas to the government, so that it can proceed in a good way to bring back the high growth path of Bangladesh, which was above 6%, above 7%. Now it
Mhm.
has dropped to 3.3%, below 4%. It is not a satisfactory. It is equivalent to Pakistan. Like the
Right.
growth rate, in many ways, Professor Yunus made the country look like Pakistan in lower growth, higher poverty, vandalism, intolerance, religious attacks, king mazars, all these things. These things so, are must be corrected by the new government.
Right. Thank you very much. We are at the very end of our podcast. So I would say that thank you for joining us today and for sharing such a clear and candid assessment of Bangladesh's banking and financial challenges. Today's discussion has highlighted an uncomfortable but necessary reality that Bangladesh's financial crisis is not merely technical but deeply structural, rooted in governance failures, political interference, and years of postponed reform. As we heard, the future of Bangladesh's banking system will depend not only on loans from the World Bank or other multilateral institutions, but on whether there is genuine political will to restore accountability, regulatory independence, and public trust. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for tuning in. If you found this conversation valuable, please subscribe to the South Asia Democratic Forum podcast, share this episode, and join us for future discussions on democracy, governance, and human rights across South Asia. I'm Tapas Kanti Baul, and this has been the SADF podcast. Until next time. Thank you once again, Dr. Paul.
Thank you. Thank you.